Welcome to Village Youth. My name is Kara and I work with the youth at our Langley South location. We are so glad that you're able to join us today. Now, this is the second of 2 talks on our series about Christmas, and today we're talking about the arrival of Jesus. Now, have you ever had something completely unexpected arrive in the mail? I've had that a few times, but recently I expected one thing to come and I actually got something totally different. So what I do sometimes, it's a little bit silly, but if I don't know my size for things, I'll just order a whole bunch of sizes. And my plan is, well, I'll order a bunch of things and then I'll return the ones that don't fit. So I was looking for pants, didn't know what style I wanted or what size I would be. So I ordered like 9 pairs of pants, like way too many. But I just knew like some of them were the same, so I would try them on, see if that fit. If not, I could, I'm a little short, so I could try the short version of it, all those things. And so I'm waiting for these pants to arrive so I can try them on and then take them back. And waiting. They just like don't show up. And so then I was starting to get a little bit worried, like what do I do if these pants just don't show up? So I call the company and they're like, yep, we'll send you a new order. Great. A few days later, whole box of pants like shows up. I try them on, figure out which ones I like. Just before I go to return them, you know what shows up? The original box of pants that was lost in the mail. So now I open up this second box and I got exactly the same thing. So now I have 9 pairs of pants in the one box and 9 pairs of pants in the other box. I have 18 pairs of pants. Who needs 18 pairs of pants? I certainly don't. And the problem was a lot of them were like exactly the same, right? Because I was just trying to figure out my size. Most of them don't even fit because they're the wrong size. And then I have 2 of everything. I had way too many pants. I didn't know what to do. So I took them all back in and it was a mess. The people at the store were so confused by me. But in the end, I got a free pair of pants out of the deal and most of them ended up just going back. But what was initially a disappointing experience, because I was just waiting, turned out to give me far more than I literally ever thought it would. Plus, I got a free pair of pants out of that deal. Now, the Bible is actually full of stories that are kind of similar to this. There's something disappointing or not expected or broken, and it actually turns out to be something beautiful, something far greater than we ever had thought. There's these expectations that go unmatched, but the arrival or the change is better than ever expected. Now, if you have a Bible in front of you, please open it up to Galatians 4, verses 4 to 5. We're going to read together from this text, so you can open up your Bible and take a look. It says this: "But when the set time had fully come, God sent his Son, born of a woman, born under the law, to redeem those under the law, that we might receive adoption to sonship." Today we'll be unpacking how the arrival of Jesus did not line up with what was expected, but how in the birth of Jesus, through Jesus coming to earth, we receive something far greater than they ever thought. And I want you to start to think about this too. So I have a question to ask you. You can, gather a few people around you and talk about it. If you're watching this on your own, you can also think about this question, jot down your thoughts, and be sure to discuss your answer later with someone that you trust. Here's my question for you. What's the last thing you were surprised by, and how did it make you feel? Here's the reality. We all have expectations. Sometimes we expect things to be like really great. When I moved to BC, one of the things I thought would be great was like, wow, I live near the mountains. I can go hiking. It can be so good. And, I'll get lots of photos for my Instagram. I'll send photos to my family in Manitoba. Like, it'll be so good. And so some of my youth leaders, they said, hey, Kara, we'll take you on a hike. And I'm like, okay, sure. I had just moved. So I went to the store. I bought hiking shoes like that morning because I'm like, I need the right stuff for a hike. I bought splash pants, going on this hike. And I'm thinking, maybe, I don't know, it'll take me an hour or 2. It'll be a beautiful view, all of that. No. 5 hours later, we're like still climbing up this mountain. Now it's snowing. So like forget the rain pants. You don't need those anymore. You need snow pants at this point. I didn't have gloves because I didn't think there'd be snow at the top. And we're still like climbing up this hill. And it's not flat like it is in Manitoba. It is like you are going up this hill. We finally get to the top. And you know what happens? It was a cloudy day. Literally all of that climbing was useless. Like why do people do this? I don't understand. All of my expectations of what our fun hike together would be, nothing. None of them happened. I was like, why do you guys do these things? I haven't actually been really on a hike since then. But we have expectations all the time. When a new movie comes out, we think about what it'll be like. We think about how will people react to our new shoes or our outfit. We have expectations about how our friends or our family will talk to us. We have expectations about if our friends will get us anything for Christmas. We have expectations about maybe how people will interact with what we post on social media. I don't know, I have that sometimes. I post something and then I hold my breath. It's is anyone gonna actually like it? I expect that someone will, but you're waiting those 2-3 minutes to see who's gonna be the first will anyone like it? It's surely one of my friends, but you just sometimes don't know. There's a quote that says expectations ruin relationships. Why do you think that is? I think it's because if I expect that my best friend is going to hang out with me every night of the week from right after school all the way up until the time I go to bed, and I expect that every day she's going to do this with me, but I never actually tell her that, I just expect it and assume that she'll know, what do you think is going to happen? Well, she's going to let me down. I'm going to be disappointed. Why? Not because she's a bad friend. It's simply because I had expected something that she had no clue was expected of her. My expectations were unrealistic. Now, whether things turn out like we anticipate or not, we all expect that certain things will happen. We have expectations. And when they're met, they can be a really great thing. We love when our expectations are met by people or things or experiences because it kind of makes us feel comfortable and safe. I don't know about you, but I love knowing what to expect from a situation. Our question earlier was about surprises, and my family makes fun of me because I hate them. I like to know exactly what's planned and exactly what's coming so I can be prepared. And I like to know so that I can adjust my expectations accordingly so they can be met. And when they are met, it's this warm cozies inside. It feels safe and happy. It could be when the reunion you have in your mind goes exactly as planned with people you know. It's when the movie or TV series resolves in the way we hoped. It's when the guy or girl actually likes us back. But sometimes our expectations just don't match and we feel let down and disappointed. A few months ago, I ran in a full marathon, and my sister had this sign when I was running and it said that's a lot of work for a free banana. And boy, was it ever a lot of work. And I expected, when you finish all of the 26 miles that you'll cross the finish line, it'll feel triumphant and you've been running for hours and there'd be music in the background and people would be cheering and you'd be a little bit sweaty but not too sweaty and it'd just be glorious. Well, none of that happened. And as I was getting close to the end, I was in pain, I was crying, I was sweaty. I crossed the line and I thought I was gonna literally pass out. And so I had to sit down and they're handing me a banana and I needed water and a jacket and people were helping me walk back to the car and my family was on the other side of this metal gate looking at me. And all my expectations of some grand victorious moment, they were not there. And honestly, that happens sometimes. The arrival of a moment just doesn't quite live up to how others tell you that it will. It's when you come off a plane at the arrival section of an airport and maybe you think you're gonna get into a limo, but you come down the escalator and instead it's a golf cart that's waiting for you. And maybe to make things worse, you think you're going to the beach, but you come outside and there's snow. It's just the hopes and the expectations do not match up. And maybe that's you today or this week and life is just not meeting up to the expectations that you had in mind. And you're feeling that it's not supposed to be this way. And in the Bible, this was the people of Israel. They were waiting for Jesus, and they had a pretty specific idea in mind of what was coming and what their king would look like. But their expectations weren't met. They were actually squashed, and they felt like they were maybe being let down or what is this? The Christmas story turns the expectations of Israel on their head. And so to start, in Matthew chapter 1, the Bible lists the genealogy of Jesus. A genealogy is basically a long list of names, and it says your family's history. We can see this as boring sometimes, but for them, this is their resume. It was always about who you were related to, and it would frame kind of how people would see you. You wanted to be seen in a certain light. And if people didn't help your resume, you would intentionally just leave them off of it. You see, in this genealogy, the Bible lists 4 women: Tamar, Rahab, Ruth, and Uriah's wife. It's important to note that the Bible bothers to include these women because in those times, the men were usually the only ones to note, and that was all. And yet, this genealogy, it highlights the role they played in the shaping and coming of the king. What's even more interesting to note is that these weren't your perfect image people. They were women who had a lot going on. Tamar had slept with a family member, Rahab was a prostitute, Ruth was a Moabite, and Uriah's wife was part of an affair. These women were immoral, of different races. The Bible could have chosen to hide them, right? Just not include them. No one will know. Wipe them under a carpet. But it didn't. The Bible could have also chosen to have a genealogy totally full of kings and really important people for Jesus' bloodline. That would have been really distinguishable and noteworthy and honoring, but it didn't. So then why is this important? Even from the beginning, Jesus is telling us about his grace. Jesus is not ashamed of this family. Anyone can be part of his family. Anyone. It doesn't matter who you are, who your family is, what you've done, where you've come from. All are welcome in his family. We are saved by grace, and there is no sin so great that we are condemned. You see, this is countercultural, because for people in the Bible, they were used to a long list of rules of who could or could not belong in God's family, and choosing to be part of his family came with a high cost. Not just anyone could easily be part of it. And here, the Bible is saying all can come in. And before I keep going, I want to comment on how the same is true for us, because sometimes we think we have to be a certain way to be good enough for God's family. Sometimes we worry about the things or the sins we've done, either before we met Jesus or while we knew Jesus. And I talk with students sometimes about this because they just feel so anxious. They've done a lot of bad things and they don't know if they're good enough for Jesus. Have they done enough good things? And it could have been now or it could have been years ago. And maybe for you, you can relate to that. Am I good enough? I don't know. And maybe for you, you've cheated on a test, or you've spoken poorly to a friend. You've lusted after someone. You've gossiped. You've disobeyed your parents. Maybe you've spent your time in not honorable places online. And maybe for you, you're wondering this question: am I good enough for Jesus? And I want to speak to you, and I want to say that no matter what, this gospel truth, there is a place for you in God's family, and it's true. If you choose a relationship with him, you're in. That's it. You don't need to worry. You don't need to stay up at night about it. You don't have to keep stressing. And the people or the family that Jesus came from, it was unexpected. And this is just one of the many expectations that got turned on its head. It's not who you think will be the perfect one, the Savior, to come from a broken people. It's completely different from what the people of Israel were expecting their king would be. Here's a couple more things they didn't expect. They thought that the king would be born in a palace, not a barn. They thought the king would be royalty, not Mary and Joseph, unknowns. They thought the first to hear about this surely would be kings and rulers, people in high places, not shepherds out in the fields. They thought this king was just for the Israelites, and yet these wise men are invited, the foreigners are invited to worship him. They thought it would be a war hero or a mighty army, certainly not a baby. They expected riches or a castle with a moat, but instead it's like poverty in a barn with just this little bit of straw to lay the baby on. Israel's expectation for the Messiah to be a king and conquer the Romans didn't quite turn out. And yet Jesus did so much more than ever could have been imagined. And so Jesus undoes our expectations and introduces us to something that's unimagined. Jesus invites us in. He unlocks the doors and says, all can come into this party. There's no bouncer, no invite only. Jesus himself came to earth as a perfect God in a situation that was very messy. He cleared the way for us to be part of the story that he's writing. And I'm not sure what this looks like for you, but maybe you need to make space in your life for Jesus to do a work. Or maybe for Jesus to be that unexpected one. Maybe he wants to do something unexpected in your life. Maybe you need to let go of what your expectations of success might look like and lean into trusting that God has a plan for your life and what he might have. What does it mean for you then to let go of your expectations and let him introduce you to something unimagined? The best part of the story is that while we are here waiting for Christmas, we're not just waiting for Christmas. Rather, Christmas is here waiting for us. Jesus is here waiting for us. The arrival of something grand has come, something so worth waiting for. We're going to dive deeper into what this means in our small groups, but hey, if you're watching on your own, I would encourage you to think this through. You can take a look at the questions below, take some time to jot down some answers, and share them with someone that you trust. Hey, thanks for joining us today. and we'll see you later. Merry Christmas.